I titled today's mind map, Be the Way You Are. This discussion here was stimulated by a conversation that I had today, and they felt that there was things going on within themselves that needed attention. They couldn't figure out what it was, but it was playing out as inharmonious relationship with their fiance. And one of the things I mentioned, I said, when we started off this conversation, you mentioned to me how you see yourself, ideally. And I said, you know what my responsibility is? Is to see you as that person, no matter what. Whatever you say, or more accurately put, however I interpret whatever you say, you are this person now. And to the degree that I remain that way, I will be able to observe the changes that occur within you. Relationships, friendships, leadership, there are many opportunities that present themselves in conversation that allow us to discover the thinking patterns that we have within ourselves that are not truly how we are, and let go of them, make peace with them. So 3 things that happens is, number 1, letting go of thinking patterns, beliefs that are not resonant to how we truly are, that are revealed in conversations with others. What I'm interested in is, what am I reacting to in relation to what they say, which reveals what I'm suggesting to myself, my thinking patterns. I want to bring conscious awareness onto these thinking patterns. If they are representative of how I truly am, then the conversation would be more inspiring, more stimulating, one of inspiration and stimulation of creative ideas, a mastermind. So we let go, we discover these thinking patterns in relation to reactivity, we let go of them, and together, reality of that vision is revealed in the 5 sensory experience in all vividness. Now, if a person has challenged, what are they saying to themselves? Is it not possible? Am I not good enough? Will others not accept me? People won't be seeing me for who I truly am. They won't reciprocate that appreciation. Now, these thinking patterns are essentially symbolic to external locus of control rather than internal locus of control. The truth is that all approval, validation, completion is found within, and it expresses as the ideal relationships, which are symbolic representations of how a person sees themselves in relation to Tuesday's video. We let go of thinking patterns, beliefs of how we once thought ourselves to be, but upon reflection of the reactivity and tension that occurs unnecessarily in relation to others, we can actually discover these thinking patterns and say, is this really true? Is this really how I am? And let them go. Let them go. Through the process of letting them go, you discover the true and accurate thinking patterns. When we're interacting with our partners, friends, business relationships, each other, we want to encourage each other. Allow that to stimulate the mind of how it is. If on the journey there are inaccurate thinking patterns, no need to shame ourselves. We let go of those thinking patterns, discover what they are, write them down, journal, let them go. Do the subconscious mind work in relation to. Watch the almost 2-hour discussion I did on the power of the subconscious mind by Joseph Murphy. Through the process, we remember how we truly are, what we truly love, and we encourage it. We encourage it in others, we encourage it in ourselves, and we see more of that. We put our attention on automatically so, which in relation, let's check out this quote here from James Allen in As a Man Thinketh. He says, "Calmness of mind is one of the beautiful jewels of wisdom. It is the result of long and patient effort in self-control." Now, here's the beautiful thing. That's the spiritual alchemy process. It gets easier when you identify the thinking patterns and let them go that are not true to how you are. Encourage the thinking patterns that are true to how you are. And recognize that all of this is about remembering who you are. And then it automatically expresses as what we would call self-control. It's automatic. He says its presence is an indication of ripened experience and of a more than ordinary knowledge of the laws and operations of thought. Now, what we react to or what we polarize to reveals about ourselves. And it's fundamentally revealed in these two areas here. A person either sees it from the perspective of internal locus of control, as in, this is going on within me, and if I find this thinking pattern within me that seems to be creating this unnecessary complexity and friction in this relationship that I have with my friends, my family, my clients, etc. If I change these thinking patterns, that relationship will change in some shape or form. It has to. Now, if they blame it on the external, then they might end up going around in circles because this pattern could end up repeating again and again and again. So we want to remind ourselves that reactivity, or what we polarize to as articulated here, the Hermetic teachings are, and this is from the Kabbalion, to the effect that the difference between things seemingly diametrically opposed to each other is merely a matter of degree. Two people get together. They're in conflict about something. They're saying the same thing, they're just saying it different ways. And they have not reconciled that that's what's really going on. Now, what we do is we find within ourselves and say, what is this conversation revealing about what I'm unconsciously saying I am too? What is my thinking pattern? This person is revealing my thinking pattern somehow based on the tension and reactivity that I feel in this conversation. What have I not made peace with? You discover that thinking pattern, whatever it may be. You let it go. Maybe a person says, I am not accepted by this other person. This person doesn't appreciate me. The truth of the matter is, all of this is found within ourselves. The completion, the validation, the approval, the appreciation is found within ourselves, is realized as how we truly are, and we find it automatically expresses in the theater of conversation with another person. A person then notices that they have inspiring conversations, stimulating conversations. Because to the degree that we have reconciled within ourselves, made peace with thinking patterns, recognizing that what it says here, it teaches that the pairs of opposites may be reconciled and that thesis and antithesis are identical in nature but different in degree, and that the universal reconciliation of opposites is affected by a recognition of this principle of polarity. So we say, what are we polarizing to? The difference being merely a matter of degrees. So if you're feeling cold and you want to turn up the temperature, you probably wouldn't crank up the heat all the way. Maybe you turn it up 3 or 4 degrees, or to the exact temperature that you would like. Same is to be said in a conversation. This is what we're doing. We are calibrating with each other. We are relating and finding commonality. And when we have that connection, watch the video I did on How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I'll put a link in the description to it. Then what we can have is inspiring and stimulating conversation. We essentially want to see eye to eye. But if there's thinking patterns within ourselves that are polarized to what a person says in relation to, I'm not getting this or I'm not getting that from another person, then we might find challenge in seeing eye to eye, which is establishing that connection with another person. And then, no need to shame ourselves or condemn ourselves. Simply write down how we think. And what we'll find is this. We're saying it's external locus of control, as in the other person's doing it, it's outside of me, the power is outside of me, I'm at the effect of. We recognize those inaccurate thinking patterns in relation to, and we assign true and accurate thinking patterns to the conversation. So for example, let's say a person communicates with another person of what they truly desire, how they truly want to live, and the other person says, well, you can't do that. And the person A polarizes to that statement. There's only one interpreter. If the person says, you can't do it, but meanwhile in your heart, you know that that's what you truly want, you can interpret it whatever way you want, and I would suggest interpreting it as that's their opinion. And it doesn't sway me, of course, of how I truly want to live. And that's what happens when you have calmness of mind. Because when you have calmness of mind, you actually see things for how they truly are, as in that's an opinion, or whatever anyone says for that matter is an opinion, and is that opinion true to how you really are? And if you're reacting to it, then you say, what's the thinking pattern? Perhaps the thinking pattern is, I want this person to approve of me before I live how I truly want to live. I want this person to validate my decision before I feel comfortable moving forward with it. That is more external locus of control. And if you're having a conversation with someone that encourages you, that could feel great. However, if you are having a conversation in which statements were presented that seem discouraging and you react to it, you might end up believing literally what they're saying, that you can't do it, it's not possible, you shouldn't do it. And maybe you might listen to it, only to realize maybe some days or weeks or months later, or even years later, that you really want to do that thing, you really want to live that way. What is causing us to react to what people are saying in a way that's not true to how we are? Well, we call that programming. Thinking patterns, beliefs. And we're at the stage of awareness right now where we can discern in conversation, in discussion, whatever anyone says to you, you have the ability to ask yourself the question during or after. You get better with practice. I do it real time. As someone is sharing with me whatever, their opinions about how I should live my life, how others should live their life, or whatever, any kind of conversation. I have the ability to discern real time by applying this information in the spiritual alchemy process, which we'll get into in a moment. And I go with what resonates because intuition. See, we want a heart and mind relationship. This is happening internally. The heart desires. We want to listen to our heart. We don't want to suppress and repress the heart desires. We want to listen to our heart and stimulate visions, the heart and mind relationship, and go after what we truly want in life. The beautiful thing about the spiritual alchemy process for me, I found that the desire, and I was met with conversation at that time when I decided to leave in 2009 and start my business. Oh, there's a recession going on, you shouldn't do it. Maybe you need to think things over before you do something like this. You have a well-paying job, why would you want to leave? Now, those things seem logical on the surface, which are coming from friends and family, and I appreciate the opinions because they're really looking out for my best interest. I still ultimately decide what I want to do, and I chose the path. Now, upon committing to the path, I realized I was going through the spiritual alchemy process, so we'll go through it together. Now, William Walker Atkinson has a book called Mental Fascination. He has these 6 attributes in there that he refers to in regards to mental fascination, which I see them relatable to the spiritual alchemy process. And in other words, this is what we want to maintain on the journey so we can have a calmness of mind to a degree where we can understand what we are polarizing to, what we are reacting to, and polarize to, focus on, give our attention to what we truly desire and what is in relation to harmony in regards to our goals, relationships. So what happens in the spiritual alchemy process is we discover these thinking patterns that are not true to us and we let go of them. Number 2, we remember who we are. We identify with the true thinking patterns. We reconcile within, and our attention automatically goes. Number 3, encourages, we could say. We encourage automatically so. So this part here where it says, it is the result of long and patient effort in self-control. The self-control becomes automatic. We automatically reveal our natural calmness of mind. We've acquired that degree of wisdom because we've made peace with or let go of thinking patterns that are not true to how we are. We also, in the process, remember how we are, and we also encourage the thinking patterns. That's why I recommend subconscious mind audios, self-talk, revision. or supporting environments, or a combination, ideally, that further encourage how you truly want to be. Become part of a mastermind, or have some friends in your life, business partners, relationships, etc., where these individuals encourage your heart desire, how you truly want to live, your intuition. This will be so powerful because what they're doing is they're encouraging your internal locus of control. But you'll notice that when you go about your day-to-day activities, you'll be able to maintain what he talks about here. A good physical well-being, belief in oneself, poise, which we can relate over to calmness of mind, fearlessness, concentration, and fixity of purpose. And the opportunities are presented on the spiritual alchemy process which occurs on the journey. So here's the process, 7 parts. Number 1 is calcination. So when you commit to a journey, a goal, or vision, whatever it may be, becoming an effective public speaker, leader, whatever it is, this is where a person might come up with self-doubt and thinking patterns in relation to egotism. Don't need to shame and condemn ourselves. Write down these thinking patterns, whatever they are, and say, is this really true? Have a conversation with yourself. This is about building a relationship with yourself. Because if we recognize that this is about letting go of thinking patterns that are not resonant with how we are, what will happen on the flip side in relation to that is the encouraging patterns of how we truly are, as related here in the Kabbalah. The teachings that the pairs of opposites may be reconciled and that thesis and antithesis are identical in nature but different in degree, and that the universal reconciliation of opposites is affected by a recognition of this principle of polarity. So, what's the opposite of self-doubt in relation to what you want to do? Well, we could say self-confidence. And say, what's a statement that I could say to myself in regards to this journey? Let's say it's having a difficult conversation with a team member, or if you're in sales, prospecting, you say, this is an opportunity for me to reveal how I truly am. I really am a confident person. And upon reference experience of taking this step in the direction, I shall recognize that fear presented this thinking pattern. I recognize that the thinking pattern of self-doubt is not true. How I really am is confident, and I will feel it. I will experience it physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually after I make this phone call, after we have a conversation, whatever the challenging conversation may be. Number 2 is desolation. In this phase, lack of responsibility, avoidance of traumatic memories, and other internal resistance, deep aspects within the subconscious mind are brought to the surface. These are opportunities. We can discover what these thinking patterns are based on reactivity. Someone says something to you. You react to it in a way that is not calm in mind. Maybe you're angry at the person. You get better at it with practice. For example, real time in the moment, you'll be able to catch yourself and say, what am I identifying with here? But if it's challenging, that's fine. It's okay. Reflect after the conversation and say, what caused that reactivity? Is it because I was not trusting myself? Did the person say you should do a certain thing and I got very agitated by it? Recognizing that how it truly is that's their opinion. And I could just say, you know what? That's your opinion. And that's okay. I thank you for sharing your opinion, but the path I'm going to choose is whatever path. I'll actually find that I'll do that next time. If there's an intense reaction, then perhaps the thinking pattern goes deep. Recommend doing the subconscious mind work. Watch the almost 2-hour discussion I did on the power of the subconscious mind by Joseph Murphy. Now, as we uncover these patterns, they're brought to the surface, we recognize that this is not how we truly are, because how we truly want to live is we want to have stimulating conversations, inspiring conversations. We want to have masterminds with our clients, our team members, our vendors, our relationships, personal life. We want to have relationships where we can have conversations. We can be open about things and talk about things and not be afraid that a person's going to shame or condemn us. Certainly, those aren't the kind of relationships that I want to have. They're not the kind of relationships that I have now. They were the relationships that I had before when I discovered these thinking patterns that were within me, made peace with them, and said, what I truly desire are harmonious relationships, loving relationships, in which we understand each other and we have constructive conversations that encourage the best in each other. Number 3, separation. What is authentic and true to you? You discover this. How do you really want to be? You know, when you see in the calcination and disillusion phase, these thinking patterns being brought to the surface, on the flip side of those thinking patterns are how you truly want to be. Person says, well, I'm afraid to start this conversation with the prospect. On the flip side of that is, I love to start this conversation with my prospects. This was the case I brought up in the Magic of Fear video. I'll put a link in the description to it, in which I talked about how I genuinely love public speaking, but I had anxiety leading up to when I would do the events on Saturdays and Sundays. And now I get to do what I really love to do, whereas before it appeared on the surface, I was procrastinating it, or I was afraid to do it, or I had anxiety towards doing it. On the flip side of that is authentic and true to how I am. The cave I fear to enter in this regard did hold the treasure that I seek. Number 4, conjunction. And by the way, this is happening all throughout the journey, day to day. You could look at this process here, day to day, with every goal, with every definite chief aim, with every vision that excites you and challenges you at the same time. That's what I love. I love something that is exciting to me and is fearful at the same time. That's how I know I'm really revealing these patterns, because I want to know what I'm unconsciously saying I am too, that I'm identifying with. I want to bring these things to the surface. I want to make peace with it so that I can live freely, so I can let go of this programming. That's not who I truly am. So I can identify with the thinking patterns that are resonant, my true self-image, my true identity. So then we go into conjunction. We accept and integrate the parts of your authentic self. You'll know, feeling is the secret. Do you resonate with certain thinking patterns? Do you no longer resonate with those thinking patterns? Knowing that with every goal, with every vision, with every definite chief aim that you bring forth, and you realize those goals and visions and you pick the next one, there are more opportunities that can present themselves in conversations with others, in cultivating the skills and the day-to-day activities, etc. Number 5, fermentation. We deepen our connection with the inner voice while detaching from certain programming identifications to deeper degrees. We develop a deeper relationship with our intuition, and that's wonderful, because then we live from a higher degree of internal locus of control. We listen to ourselves. Yes, we listen to the opinions if you would like to. You can look at and see what everyone else is doing, but ultimately, you go with what resonates with you. Number 6, distillation. Integrate inner realizations into our lives in order to allow them to become permanent. So we're practicing this. As we learn about what we've been reacting to or polarizing to that is not true to how we are, we don't shame or condemn ourselves. We let go of those thinking patterns. Let it go, doing the subconscious mind work. As a result, via our intuition, we discover how we truly are. We encourage, number 3, those thinking patterns. We do those things that are in harmony with those thinking patterns. We think the things that are in harmony with those thinking patterns. We even enjoy sharing it with others. I always say this, people show up ready to receive what I have learned through my own spiritual alchemy journey, as well as people show up to reveal what I could do more of. And that's what ends up happening. A person starts to find, to deeper degrees, nuances of what they truly love. And they make flow a priority to a higher degree. I noticed that as I was going down the spiritual alchemy process for different goals and visions and definite chief aims, it got to a point, as I mentioned this in some of my discussions, if you've been watching my flow series, I mentioned in there, I'll put a link in the description to it, that in 2017, I said, I'm just going to make flow a priority. That's it. Everything else is going to take care of itself, and it did. Everything improved in my life, my personal life, business life, relationships. I listened to my intuition automatically. I automatically do things. My attention automatically goes to where I truly desire. I don't overthink things. And number 7 here, coagulation, one with the divine. Inner and outer world are not seen as different or conflicting, but to a higher degree, they are seen as reflections of each other as one, which then relates to back to the premise here. Calmness of mind is one of the beautiful jewels of wisdom. It is the result of long and patient effort in self-control. Now, this spiritual alchemy process, what's being discussed here, is totally worth it. I'm so glad that I was able to work with a process like this to help me identify what it is that I was saying unconsciously I am too, which was creating unnecessary conflict, unnecessary friction in my life, in my relationships, in my business, different areas of my life. Unnecessary, because this was programming that throughout the journey I identified with. Maybe I learned it here and there. It's okay. Let it go. Connect to how you truly are. Remember, actually, more accurately put, how you truly are, the thinking patterns, what you truly desire to live as far as life experiences, relationships, etc. And encourage. You'll notice a lot more encouragement happening. You'll even be surrounded by people that encourage you because the outer is a reflection of the inner. Calmness of mind is one of the beautiful jewels of wisdom. It is the result of long and patient effort in self-control by valuing this process here. What do you polarize to? What do you react to? No need to shame or condemn yourself. Identify the thinking pattern. Make peace with that thinking pattern, let it go, and ask yourself, how do I really see this? For example, in consulting, I realized on the journey that my goal really is to see my clients the exact way they see themselves to be ideally, which they reveal to me. I say, what's your goal? What's your vision? What do you want in life? How do you truly want to live? And because there's no limitations in mind, how do you really see yourself being? And they share with me, they describe themselves, and I see it vividly in my mind's eye that that's how they truly are. I say, you know what? I see it so clearly how you are. And my goal throughout the conversation, no matter what opinion that they have about themselves that is not true to how they are, I don't argue with them. I don't shame them. I don't lecture them. I don't even tell them what to do. I simply maintain it in my mind's eye that whatever it is that they're saying that is not true to how they truly are thinking patterns that they are going to let go of. And what I find in conversation is they find their own solutions. They find their own accurate thinking patterns. That's why I really like this part here in mental fascination. Physical well-being, make sure you show up ready to go. Believe in these abilities. They are inherent within all of us. Maintain that poise. If you lose your poise, that's okay. What are the thinking patterns in relation to? Fearlessness, which is natural. Thinking patterns in relation to create unnecessary complexity in regards to fear. Watch the video I did on the hero's journey. I'll put a link in the description to it. Concentrate on how they truly are. That which they had identified in the beginning of the conversation. This is true for not just consulting, personal relationships, business. You go on a date, you ask the person, well, how do you see yourself ideally? And they are that person now. I maintain it. Same with fixity of purpose. I have a vision. You have a goal. You have a vision. To service the clients. To create and innovate and express in your entrepreneurial endeavor. To focus on the fair value mutual exchange. Your product and service for fair compensation. and to provide the service with such calmness and joy and precision, and you love being there as well. You genuinely want to be there. And if there's any inaccurate thinking patterns that are brought to the surface, we make peace with them. Then the true and accurate thinking patterns are brought to the surface, and as I mentioned, in conversation, they reveal it. They actually do it. And then I take notes. I say, oh, wow, that's interesting. They give me great perspectives on how they now see their perceived challenges or difficulties. And all I'm doing is just representing them in my mind's eye as that person now. No matter what they say, this is the key. Because that's how they genuinely want to be seen. So when a person says, I am not seen, I don't feel understood, well, there's no opportunity for that theater to play out, because in my presence, I see them for how they truly want to be. And I know they're speaking from the heart. So I always say, people show up ready to receive that which I have learned, which maybe I might say a few things here and there about my own reference experience, but the goal is to really stimulate within them what they already know, because this works both ways, within ourselves and others. Number two, they remember who they are. This is the internal locus control. Thus, they find internal validation, approval. They'll even say it in the conversation. They're like, you know what? I already knew these things. It's great to have this conversation with you and share with somebody who understands me. And it's true. They already knew these things. You know the things. We all know the things. All we have to do is let go of the thinking patterns. In the moment, we'll recognize those things. And then all I do is I encourage those things. I say, tell me more about this thought process that you identified with, which is the true and accurate way of looking at it. And I keep the conversation on the encouragement, and they become that way, because that's what we're doing with the subconscious mind work. We're uncovering the thinking patterns that are not true. We're saying, what are the true thinking patterns, identifying with those true thinking patterns, and that becomes the self-image. And then the distillation and coagulation makes even more sense. We integrate the inner realizations into our lives. We live in a loving, flow-based way. We feel one with the divine. Inner and outer world are not seen as conflicting and separated and so forth. They are seen as one. They are experienced as one. And then a person has calmness of mind, and they say, look, I can polarize to what I truly desire, how I truly am, transcendent to the programming I am. So I trust you found this video to be helpful. Let's go ahead and conclude this with an autosuggestion to further encourage. We could say, I recognize on the journey to realizing my vision, thinking patterns are brought to the surface, and I have the opportunity to feel which thinking patterns are true and in harmony with who I really am, my goals, my visions, my definite chief aims. As a result, I integrate with those thinking patterns, which reveals my intuition to a higher degree, furthering the inner conversation of love and prosperity and well-being, further integrating with those thinking patterns as I find love and flow in all things. And as a result, I feel one inner and outer world, recognizing that they were always one, transcendent to the programming I am. If you would like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.